Magandang araw, Podmates. Howie Severino here with a special guest, a diplomat from the Ukraine, Mr. Denys Mykhailiuk, who is the chargé d'affaires for the Ukrainian embassy in Malaysia. A chargé d'affaires is the head of the mission or the embassy while the ambassador is away or not yet appointed. Mr. Mykhailiuk, our hearts go out to the people of your country, which has been defending itself from the Russian army now for almost 600 days. The war began in February 2022. First, sir, I would like to ask how you are and how is your family, and whether you have any family members or relatives currently in the Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Severino, for having us. Thank you for the words of sympathy. Yes, my immediate family is with me in Malaysia, my wife and kids, but my parents, brother, and all other relatives are in Ukraine. They are relatively safe, how it's possible in these conditions, thanks God. The war with Russia started actually in 2014 with the annexation of Crimea, but the full-scale invasion started on 24th of February last year, you're right. It's almost a year and a half now, and we are defending from what was called before the second best army in the world. Now we know it's second best in Ukraine, but anyways, it's the biggest one.
Give us an idea of how this war is currently affecting ordinary people in Ukraine and ordinary life there.
For Ukraine, it's changed already everything, and we will never be the same, joyful and careless, maybe over-friendly country to everybody like we were 2 years ago. Not even the war in 2014 didn't change us that much. But now out of 45 millions, up to 8.5 millions are displaced. Tens of thousands killed. We don't reveal our military losses. They are significantly less than Russians, but they are still tens of thousands. And the war is on our territory, so we are paying the toll with our civilians as well. There are cities completely destroyed to the ruble, like the city of Mariupol, the biggest port on Azov Sea, with a population of 400,000 people. Russia destroyed the city completely using conventional weapons, 5 times more than nuclear bomb in Hiroshima. We will become militarized society, definitely, because we will have to teach our kids not how to play, but how to assemble the machine gun, how to give the first aid to the wounded, what to do during the aerial attack. We already do that. In every family, there is somebody who's killed, friends lost, people lost their houses. We will never forget.
Sir, there experts were saying this war can last a long time, but from your point of view, what would be the best case scenario for Ukraine here?
Best case scenario is to get all the supports from our allies right now, immediately, not drop by drop, and to destroy Russian troops on our territory. We are not invaders. We don't want to go there further. And to obtain the security guarantees, either from NATO or direct ones like Sweden or Finland get before joining NATO, or like the Philippines have from the United States, or the South Korean Republic has as well. So we need some nuclear umbrella. And this will make the war stop. Because else, even if we are very successful in removing Russia from our territory, it will mean only that the front line is moving towards Russia. Because Russia can sustain low-intensity conflict, not like it is now, because now it's very intense. It's like the Second World War. But if they switch to low-intensity conflict, they can sustain it for decades. This will...
Decades?
Yes, it will be good for us as well, because we will be able to restore our destroyed capabilities. But we will be turned in this scenario. We will be turned into the fortress, which is, not the choice we like. We would like to get some security guarantees from the international community to stop this war at least for 50 years or so.
Mhm. Your President Zelensky, has often said that this is more than just about Russia and Ukraine. Can you elaborate? Why does the rest of the world need to care about this war?
Actually, he's 100% right. Because if it were about Russia and Ukraine, we will be forgotten and we will be fighting all alone. Because the main idea here, Russia is executed, is to destroy the system of international law, is to destroy the principle that every state has right for existence and for development, is to reinstall the system of 16th century. Then the powerful state can dictate to the smaller state its will and grab its resources, control its trade using military force. And Russia is, if Russia succeeds, if it will not be punished, this will be the example for every bigger states in the world to dictate their neighbors, not necessarily to attack them, but to threaten them with the usage of the weapons, to threaten them with the naval blockades like Russia is doing in the Black Sea. And this is about that. And that's why we are supported with so many countries. The second thing, which is more Ukrainian and less international, we are not fighting for any territories. It's not the idea of the square kilometers. It's idea of the right of existence in our borders as a sovereign state, right of doing what we want, right to be sovereign on our territory. And the territorial demands from Ukraine to restore our borders, it's more about international law. It's about the legality. So the law should be reinstalled.
And you're based in Malaysia. You represent your country in Malaysia, and I suppose the Philippines as well. And you speak for your country in our region. What kind of support do you seek from this part of the world, Southeast Asia? We're quite far from the conflict, but as you say, the rest of the world is affected. Why should we care as Southeast Asians in this war?
You should care very much. First of all, if we are going geopolitical, there are some global fractions between the countries with different attitudes towards the way of life. One of them is Central Europe, and we are the country facing now the military threat and military attack from the dictatorship, from a authoritarian state, trying to destroy the democratic change of power in Noid very much, because they are very close culturally, but we are living free. We travel free, while the Russians had to surrender their political freedoms in exchange for some grandeur and for some material benefits. So this is about the vision of the world as well. And you have the same situation here. There are several dominant countries in the region. Some of them have claims to all the neighbors. Some of them just expand slowly and have territorial requests to their neighbors. And the only thing which protects Southeast Asia from going into the eternal war for centuries is the system of international law. It's the system of arbitrage, is the system of negotiations, talks, and prohibition of using force.
Do you see parallels between Russia and China? I mean, you're referring to similar situations here.
I think China is watching this conflict very closely, and it's looking for patterns of effective behavior. And I think that a year and a half of severe war, severe resistance of Ukraine already gave China significant lessons learned what they should not do. Because it's not effective, it affects everybody. And if you make parallels between China and Russia, I would say that Russia is less dependent on international trade than China. So if sanctions of this scale will be imposed on China, it will be a catastrophe for them. So they are way smarter than Russians. They never attack like this. And I hope that we paid significant contributes already to the peace and prosperity of Southeast Asia. The second point why it's important for Southeast Asia, it's the food security. Russia is producer of 15% of world grain, and we are producer of 10% of world grain. So 25, why 1/4 of all the grain supply to the world is now severely affected. And you feel it here. The chicken price, the corn price, the bread price, and it will, these discrepancies of the world trade will only grow. And we see how China reacts. Actually, China participated in Jeddah meeting in Saudi Arabia, and we're talking about how to stop this war. It was not negotiations; it was the forum to shape the future world order. I would say so. And China is voting for rules here.
Well, as you know, sir, since you're based in this region, Taiwan has been preparing for a potential invasion by China. Of course, Taiwan is a smaller country than China, in the same way that Ukraine, although it's big, it's still a smaller country than Russia. So you say that China has been observing the war in the Ukraine and should be learning some lessons. So can you be specific? What are some of the lessons that China can learn from that conflict and what Russia has done to the Ukraine?
First of all, they can see that if the people does not want to surrender, it doesn't matter how big you are, how superior your forces are. If the people wants to resist, to fight back, it might be painful. Russia lost 350,000 as of now, killed only. So it's significant for every country, even as big as Russia. China will see that international community might be slow and express concerns for a couple of months, but if the war lasted longer, there will be significant sanctions and restrictions on trade, and it will be destructive for the prosperity and future. China would also see that Russia trade off its future for the square kilometers of occupied land, because they are prohibited from using sophisticated technologies and long supply chains from all over the world. They have to rely on themselves, but it's all this limit yourself, and your speed of development will drop. You'll see this Russian lunar program. They just launched the spaceship, the exact copy of what Soviet Union done 30 years ago, and it failed. So they're degrading. And I think China will think about it as well. But I'm not talking not only on China. There are lots of big countries around here. Yes, the conflict between China and Taiwan is the most obvious one, but there are also India and Pakistan here. There is huge Indonesia with the demographic pressure. It's lots of problems here, and the only way to solve them, to get prosperity for everyone, is to do it peacefully.
Most people are not aware that there was another war that began in 2014. Most of us are just aware of the more recent invasion in 2022. Please give us more background into what happened in 2014 and why you consider the war with Russia to have gone in 14, not in 2022.
Actually, they stole everything, even the name, because before 1651, there was before 1721 there was a Moscow kingdom, and the territories near the Dnieper River, with the capital in Kiev, which is 1,500 years old, much older than Moscow, for example, were called Rus, and Ukraine was the other name for it. And then we had a loose autonomy after the war with Poland in 1561. After that, this loose autonomy was torn by the Peter the Great under the occupation, destruction of our statehood, and we were in the same empire for 300 years. So Russia grew stronger, accumulated significant resources, and in 2014 they annexed Crimea, while we had change of power and the president ran away, so it was the weakest point in our statehood. And they just annexed Crimea, and to distract the international authority, authorities and international attention, they also launched their hybrid invention to our eastern borders, supporting the weapons, armaments, troops, their proxies. They call them independent states, but they are literally Russia-backed separatists in the fractions of two eastern regions of it. And this low-intensity warfare lasted since 2014, and Mr. Putin grew older. He wants to be entered into the history of forever, and that's why on February 2022, Russia launched full-scale invasion to destroy our state. But the resistance of Ukrainian people was strong. We were fighting all alone with no support, with condolences only, for more than a month. We repelled Russians out of our capital. Our president stayed in the city. He embodied the will for resilience from the whole people. Our army showed to be effective, modernized, and very much motivated. We had US to the conscription ports during the first stage of invasion. And then they were near the capital with their tanks and their machineries. The people on the streets were given firearms just if they will to protect. And, you know, it was a silly idea to invade the country of 40 million or something like that with the invading army of 200,000. Now, unfortunately, our own resources is exhausted, and we rely very much on the international help. We are thankful for the countries on the world for supporting us greatly in the international fora. For the United Nations General Assembly resolution on the peace plan of President Zelensky, more than 140 countries voted, and we are thankful for the Republic of the Philippines for supporting us here too. And there is also the Ramstein format. This is 50 plus countries supporting us not only with the moral support, but also with weapons, finance, and other sources. But unfortunately, and there is a fraction of our guilt here too, because we were a very peaceful nation. It's enough heavy weapons to distract the Russian army out of the country. Our offensive operation now is quite slow because Ukraine, after 9 months of fortification efforts by Russians, is the mostly mined country in the world. They dig huge trenches, several lines of fortifications with the concrete ground. So our ground troops are moving slowly. But what we are doing now, we are trying to destroy their depots, their supply lines, supply chains, and with the main idea to cut off their troops on the south of our country from the direct supply from Russia.
You're supposed to be in the midst of a counteroffensive. No? We've been reading about this. So how is this going? Is Ukraine making progress in removing the Russian army from these entrenched positions?
During the first stage of war, Russia captured 25% of our territory. We are a huge country. We are 600,000 square kilometers. Now they are controlling 50. So we did significant progress. But unfortunately, due to the lack of the heavy armaments and ammunition in the beginning of the war until the summer this year, for every shell shot by Ukrainian army, Russia shot 10. Now this ratio is changed slowly, but you know, Russia is still the biggest country in the world. So we rely on our own production, we restore it, and we rely on the production of our allies. So we are not moving very fast in terms of territory, but what we are concentrating now is the destruction of their artillery capabilities. Our artillery systems, donated by the partners from the West, outrange Russians at least for 5 kilometers, sometimes for 10 kilometers. And in combining with our sophisticated reconnaissance technologies, we turned this war into the war of drones and remote technologies because we save the lives of our soldiers and we value them. We destroy 1 cannon for 1 lost, 5 cannon for one lost. So we are quite good here, and so I think we have 2 to 3 months to prolong this campaign. After that, there will be a rainy season in Ukraine, and we have very thick and fertile soils, difficult to move through during the wet season. And before winter, there will be some pause into the offensive operation. But the destruction of the Russian technical capabilities and the depots will be continued by the drone technologies and hopefully with aviation, which we were promised to obtain by the end of this year.
Sir, I just want to share with you that soon after the Russian invasion in February 2022, I contacted a Filipina traveler in Ukraine. I believe, she was in Kiev at the time. I interviewed her on the same program, and I asked her what brought her to Ukraine, and she had actually been living there for several months before the war started. And she told us that she found it easier to travel in the Ukraine during the pandemic, when so many countries were closing their doors to other travelers. She said Ukraine welcomed her, and in fact, she was even able to get a job as a teacher of young children. And she was telling us that the Ukrainian people are very hospitable and friendly to her, and she did not feel any discrimination. And in fact, she told us she fell in love there with a Ukrainian man, and that's why she was there. But just as importantly, she told us that she decided to stay in Kiev, even if she was a foreigner, because she wanted to help in the defense of your country. Of course, she's not in the front lines, she's not fighting, but she was helping in the providing relief and preparing supplies and helping keep the people's spirit up. But she was telling us that she was determined to stay there, and it felt and she was heartbroken because she felt that the country was kind to her and was very hospitable, and she felt that there was so much that was being lost. So it's a credit to your country and your people and your culture that we heard this kind of experience from one of our countrymen, or one of the women from my country, who decided to stay in Ukraine to help defend your country.
We're very thankful, and actually we feel very much support from the Filipinos. I would say that in this area, Filipinos pro-Ukrainian the most. I'm talking about the rank and file people. Most of sympathy is coming here. The second country who is very sympathetic for us is Timor-Leste, because they just passed from the similar experience 20 years ago, and Ukrainian peacekeepers were helping to restore order in Timor-Leste there, and so they enjoy some friendly relations. And yes, our society is very open, and I think that to survive after this war, because for me, it's my personal opinion, the main danger is not even the military threat from Russian Federation, but the depopulation, demography. Because people are leaving the country, and the longer the war will be, the less chances we will return. We were around 40 million people before the war. We will be lucky if there will be 20 after the war. And we will have to provide incentives for Ukrainians to come back, and for other skilled labor and people from all over the world. We have to turn ourselves into a new frontier, because Ukraine will be the biggest construction site for another 50, 60 years to come. On eastern part of the country, there the majority of our industry was located. The whole cities are destroyed. The territory is heavily mined and barely livable. People lost literally everything. There are towns where tens of thousands of people lived with no single building intact.
We want to thank you Mr. Denys Mykhailiuk, the head of the embassy in Ukraine, in Malaysia. Again, our sympathies to you and your country, and may the war come to an end soon without many more deaths. Thank you for your time and for sharing your thoughts, and we wish you safety always.
Thank you, Mr. Severino, for having me, and thank you for the possibility to talk to the Filipinos audience. And I thank you once more for the support and the moral help you are giving to us. And we hope that there will be ways for mutually beneficial cooperation. And we would be happy to sell some grain here, which will support our economy and will secure your food security. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Howie Severino. Check out the Howie Severino podcast, an original for GMA News and Public Affairs. New episodes will stream every Thursday. Listen for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other platforms.